How are you? And our topic today, oh my goodness, is connecting with romance readers, what they really want. And this is interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting. It's complex, and it, yeah, it was really interesting for me to research some of these questions.
Yeah. And this was thank you to Claude, not ChatGPT, because ChatGPT was not working today before
Well,
the launch of 5.0. So
Claude,
I'm interested to know why Claude goes such a deeper dive, and that's where AI becomes a challenge because, oh my gosh, these are different types of questions, makes you think. So
yeah,
here's the first question: what's the biggest misconception authors have about romance readers?
I think the biggest misconception about readers is that they're trite, they're homogenous, they they're they have simple tastes. They're primarily seeking escapism, and that's not true. Um, and I did the research on that years ago, and if I can find your demographics, I wrote down. Um, it's interesting if you look at the demographics. This was done in 2020, and 82% of the readers are female. Well, that's no big surprise. And 73% of the readers ethnicity, they're Caucasian, and that's no big surprise. But the big surprises are in education, because over 45% of all romance readers have at least one degree. Um, they are very well educated, and the other thing is they are primarily in the South and Midwest, which I thought was a little interesting. And 59% of these readers are married, um, which is
Hmm.
kind of an interesting thing. Um, and then let's see, when some people think that people that read romance novels are anti-feminine, or they're the anti-feminist against those groups. But in reality, good romance novels are very pro-female. They write very strong female characters. At least I do. I write very strong female characters, and that are they're very self-respect, or in why am I trying to stutter along with this word? Introspective, and they challenge the norms, and there are a lot to challenge. And so in romance novels, that's very different than what most people would think. And they don't necessarily, although that's not a, a bad thing, escapism, a lot of us read just to get away, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people or that read romance novels like the in-depth characters. They like character development that they read about, and they like the the narratives, the really good narratives, which I think I have really good narratives.
That's interesting. So, what drives romance readers to pick up a book after book in the genre?
um, One of them, well, there's a combination of factors, and one of them is the emotional connection that they get um, with the characters. They they want to see the outcome. They want to see how they struggle and overcome, because there's always going to be a challenge in these books. But of course, it's an HEA, so they always end up fine. But it's the journey that draws people in. Of course, there is a factor of um, wish fulfillment. They read about this and they triumph with the love. When love triumphs, that the reader feels that too, because they do have that connection, and then they have a hope and an optimism. And when things work out for the characters, it can give the reader that same hope and optimism that things are will always work out, or things can work out. Does that make sense?
No, totally.
Okay.
What role does escapism play, and how can authors tap into that without being manipulative?
Well, I don't. The main thing that I think is important to for a writer to think about when they are putting a story together is to be authentic. And if you're being authentic with your characters and being authentic with the story, of course, the characters have to be compelling enough to bring the reader along. But I don't, if you're being authentic, then you don't have to worry about manipulating the reader. The characters will pull them in. Um, and I think I've mentioned to you more than several times that things have happened in my book that I never thought were going to happen. I and I have a couple of readers and they'll say, "Why did you have so and so do so and so?" And I'm, well, I didn't know they were going to do that. They just did it. So um, it's not if there is a manipulation at all, it's the characters manipulating the author, not the author manipulating the audience. You know what I mean? I don't think you do know. I mean, you have to really be a writer to understand what I'm saying, because even when I talk to readers, they don't understand what. Well, you wrote it. Well, yes and no. My characters made me do it. I'm innocent.
Exactly. What are romance readers actually? Where are romance readers actually hanging out online, and where should authors focus their energy?
Let's see. Let's see. I have well, they are hanging out, and I read about that and was kind of surprised. Um, Instagram was listed as number one, as the number one place where they are hanging out. And then TikTok in the book talk. And I would think that's gaining popularity because of the fact that they have one whole division for nothing but books. And I have talked to several of my followers that have come into Mina Valentine. And I asked them, are you an author? Are you a reviewer? Do you edit? What do you do? And 99% of them are telling me they're not authors, that they do editing work or review work, and they are reviewers. And you see a lot of that on Book Talk. So I have seen one or two authors do live shows on Book Talk, but I haven't really conversed with any of them. I've tried to reach out a little bit, but more of the reviewers and editors will talk to me than fellow authors, which is kind of odd because indies should support indies.
Right. How do you balance being authentic with maintaining a professional boundaries?
Well, I am very much uh, I am very much about not sharing. And I think there are pros and cons for that, but I'm very much against sharing too much of the developmental process because because if your reader can get too familiar with the author and kind of veer away from the books, you know what I mean? Now, the support for being a little more sharing is that it can develop empathy, but that's that's not my consideration. I think once you start sharing your developmental process or the struggles you're having or asking for help with character development, I think you have crossed the line. That's my opinion.
Okay. When we're talking about building community, how can newer authors break into established reader communities without seeming pushy?
I think that for me, being on TikTok, you don't push. People find you and like you, or they don't. Um, I think with Facebook, I think running ads on Facebook, that's not being pushy. If you can afford it, I don't think that Facebook's that expensive. Um, they there is some considerations for Instagram, um, and about I'm not sure about that one, but I know that Book Talk and Facebook are very good ways. I think if you're trying to get into book clubs and you get into those platforms and you start talking about your book, and I think that's probably too pushy.
What are the biggest turnoffs for romance readers when authors try to connect?
I don't know. I the biggest turnoffs. I think once again I fall back on that authentic thing, and I if the author is being sincere about their book and talking about it without saying buy my book, um, I think that that's telling somebody, you really need to buy my book because it's really good, and if you don't buy it, you're stupid, or it's I that's a big turnoff. Now I do ask people. I show them my book when I do my ads or my little blurbs on TikTok. I hold my books up. I show them the cover and I say, and it's steamy. It's really steamy. So I try to promote the book without going over the edge. I think there's a fine line. I'm not sure what it is. Um, for me, uh, to me, soliciting, just going out and soliciting for the sake of selling a book is, to me, that's kind of, you know icky.
All right. The best place people can go, again, is minavalentine.com. And your next book's coming out soon, right? You ready?
I'm still waiting on the damn cover. I you know that's what happens when you pay somebody in advance. That is a good lesson. um but it's done. I can't do anything about it.
Except you go hunt her down.
uh, oh yes, and I have done that. One thing I wanted to say about readers and how they can help you as an author is I have a couple of beta readers. And with this last book, I had one of them write me back and they said, this was so upsetting. This poor woman has suffered through so much. Now, there is a happy ending, but she does suffer through a lot. And so when she talked to me about that and was telling me this really, it tore me up. I thought, should I go back and should I soften it up? And I thought, no, because it's real. I wrote it because it's real. And she loved the ending. She was very happy about that. It's just the the first part of it was upsetting in the violence. Um, so sometimes you really need to listen to your readers and pay attention to what they're telling you. Other times you just have to go with your gut and hope for the best. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. The best place people go again is minavalentine.com. Appreciate it, Mina, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.